Thanks for coming. Recap Saturday's game, MVPs from the game. Judge called Prepper on defense, who I think was MAC West Player of the Week this week as well. Thought had a great game, very disruptive, and very consistent all the way through the game. On special teams, Zara Colley got a big block punt for us, which is a major momentum boost in any type of football game, and was a big one at that point in time for the first half there in that game Saturday. DeQuan Finn on offense, I thought was very efficient. Obviously broke a couple school records there in his performance on Saturday, but really managed the offense. I thought at a really high level, in and out of formations, doing a good job getting guys where they're supposed to be lined up, and we played it at a good tempo, especially in the first half when he had his reps. So and that continued throughout the course of the game. So happy to put this one to bed. Looking forward to San Jose State. Very good team coming in here Saturday night. Very well coached team. Coaching staff has done a great job since they took over there. They're aided by really good quarterback play, a couple really good running backs. I think they can run the ball at a high level, and they've done a really good job protecting the quarterback. So it's a good offense. Defensively, I think is a very sound secondary that's got a lot of at-bats under their belt, a lot of starts, and they're disruptive in their front by the different looks that they do give you. So it's going to require a really good week of preparation and focus from our guys, and looking forward to getting back on the practice field with our guys tomorrow morning. So
we asked after the game a lot of questions about kind of dealing with the adversity and channeling it and all that. This week, is it similar with playing well and learning how to kind of continue that and not read about how great you were and think everything?
Well, I mean, life, right? Like wake up one day and it's a picture of adversity, and then wake up the next day and it's a picture of prosperity. Like what your mood swings are and what that feels like each and every day sometimes can. You can ride that wave of emotion, and college football season is no different. So, we got to hit the ball down the middle of the fairway. We got to stay detailed and dialed into what we want to do and what we want to accomplish. Got to finish up good prep as a staff today, and then we got to have a great practice tomorrow morning as a full team in the morning for Tuesday. So, I thought our Tuesday practice was really good last week. I thought the guys did a good job of coming out with great attitude and energy. And, usually when that's the case, that focus is needed, or that is needed is there. And you're able to put together, at least get off to a good start in a week of prep, and this is going to require that as well.
You're a quarterback guy. What do you see out of San Jose State's quarterback? He's been pretty good these last few years.
Yeah, he's hard to sack because he gets the ball out of his hand. I think they have a really good offensive line, and he's efficient. He knows what to do with the ball. All the receivers are similar in body style and body type. And they have great catch radius, and he's able to hit their hands with the ball, and it's led to productive play. So, and I think they're balanced. Like I said, I really like the two running backs. I think they're both very good, and when you can be balanced on offense, it's really hard to defend you and gang up on you one way or another. So, I think he's a comfortable player who's gained a lot of confidence through his starts, and really does a good job executing the plan that their coaches put in front of him.
Injuries are part of the game. You just kind of got to deal with it. You're out without several starters last week. Do you feel like you're in a pretty good spot, though, because of the depth?
Yeah, I don't. 41 guys played on offense, 41 guys played on defense, and I think we had almost 60 guys get some type of special teams reps on Saturday. So, the reps are coming, in critical time because we are dealing with some injuries, and some guys that didn't play at all Saturday, and some guys that were limited, and maybe some other guys that we lost Saturday. So that's part of it. We've been building for moments like this all year, and now other guys are going to get their opportunity to play, and they got to go do it and play well.
Coach, how was it going to be back at the Glass Bowl? Obviously, the first home game was a fun one. Now you're home the next 3 weekends. What do you expect to see out of fans? Yeah,
I think just a different schedule. Obviously, from a fan experience, these are all really good weather games at the front end of this thing. And, I thought, the game day atmosphere Saturday was really good, and I think the challenge is to continue to now is the same as the football team, continue to take it one step further. And but we feed off the energy of the crowd, and obviously, the rocket walk and that piece of it, all that kind of stuff is really a good indication of the energy and the support and the pageantry that goes along with college football. So I'd like to see that thing packed as well. But happy with what Saturday looked like, and continuing. Hopefully, that continues this week, and we continue on. And we got to continue to do our part as a football team too.
I wanted to ask you about just what Zach Ford means to this program. A guy who's literally been here your entire tenure. What does it mean? I guess, what do you recall about your first experience with with him, and what does it mean to have a leader who's been here for 7 years?
Yeah, I mean, Zach is as consistent as the day is long. You know what I mean? He's got his master's degree already, and a very smart guy, very articulate guy, and a guy I think that understands that he's got a sphere of influence and can lead in a positive manner. He's a good player, and he's a self-made player. You know what I mean? He was a long corner that we recruited out of high school that we turned into a safety when he got here, and he's had to really, really work and study the game. He's a good communicator on the field and a guy that, as like I said, earned the right to play really, really well, and he's played really, really well. So Zach was the first recruit I ever had decommit from Toledo. Got the job and sat here in this same room and did the press conference, and that night I was at home with my wife eating dinner, and my phone rings, and it's Zach Ford, and he's going to tell me he's going to decommit and go somewhere else. And doesn't have anywhere to go, but he's going to decommit. So, got a head coaching job and lost a recruit all in the same day, but cooler heads prevailed, and Zach found his way back to Toledo, and the rest is history. So, but glad we have him in our program because, like I said, he means a lot to this team and has been a clear picture of what it is to be a student athlete, really high GPA guy, as I mentioned, and a guy that's very accountable to what he does and takes his process very serious. And when seniors can do that, young players at that position, all they got to do is watch.
How'd you talk him back into coming?
What's that?
How'd you talk him back into coming?
I think we won 9 games that year. And had a really good season. So, but I think obviously change is anywhere change is inevitable, and you have to really get the nuts and bolts and find out what the truth is of everything. And when coaching changes happen, that spooks kids and sometimes turns kids away. But once he got to know the new staff, and especially the guy that was going to be coaching him and Coach Watson, I think it's been really good ever since then.
The MAC is obviously one of the huge focuses, but heading into a big G5 game this week and looking at the bigger picture, would you ever mention something like, say, in 2012, Northern Illinois lost a close game in their opener, a Big Ten team, and then ran the table, and they still had goals beyond that? Would you ever use an example like that with your team?
Well, I mean, I think that if you're going to talk about the process and you're going to talk about every day matters, then yeah, I mean, you got to win every game if that's how you're driven. And I think that's how we're driven. We're not, we want to make sure that we treat every opponent with the same amount of attention to detail, just because I think it's so much in college football is, depending on you doing what you need to do. More college football games are lost more than they're won, in the sense that somebody screws it up. So, you guard against that all week long as a coach. You guard against that all week long as a player. Not to the point in time where you should play tentative or play scared or not want to go have fun, because you only get 12 opportunities a year that are guaranteed to you. But we want to have authentic preparation, so Saturday we confidently can go play freely and play fast and do what we have to do. And regardless of who the opponent is, you should feel pretty good if you're able to capture that week of preparation.
In your experience as a player all the way, assistant to head coach, do teams struggle more off of losses or dealing with success?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. The psyche of all that stuff is, and again, like I said, is hit the ball down the middle of the fairway. And again, there's going to be signs of adversity. There's going to be moments that you feel really, really good, and you got to treat each imposter with the same amount of time and energy, because neither one of them really can. They're not going to change the game for you either way. One of them is going to provide really, really good lessons. So is the other one. You know what I mean? You got to pull from that and stay in your lane and do what you're supposed to do. The teams I think that really struggle are the teams that don't have enough humility to tell themselves the truth, and players that don't have enough humility to tell themselves the truth when they make mistakes, so they can go back and fix it on tape so that same mistake doesn't continue to repeat itself. And those things that maybe didn't get you beat in the beginning of the year, they don't show up and get you beat at the end of the year. So that's a struggle to me. That's the constant process. That's the constant hammering away the details. And, what the results are and how that is, man, oh, man, like sometimes the ball doesn't bounce your way. I mean, 2 years ago, we were fewest turnovers in all of college football. And we do the same drills that year as we did last year. And last year we turned it over a bunch. You know what I mean? So sometimes it just doesn't go your way, but you got to continue to keep your nose down and continue to keep coaching and keep practicing and buy into the things that matter.
Go ahead, Kyle. Talking about Zach Ford and being a 7th-year guy, obviously there's all these COVID guys on every team. Like, whether it's your own team in practice or watching on film, like, is it noticeable that teams have guys who've been around a long time that kind of know what they're doing and are super familiar with systems and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think the good programs, they buy into that's a key thing. You know what I mean? I think the teams that struggle are the teams that you look at this year, you see the depth chart of a team that you're going to play, and man, oh man, they have 2 freshmen starting, and what are they going to be like in 3 years? Well, in 3 years, due to the continuity or the culture of the program, those guys aren't there. Here's 3 new freshmen playing. So I think it's, the reasons why those guys have put themselves in that situation, the reasons why we would have a 5th or 6th or 7th year guy around here would be that he's a really good player and that he's done the right things, and he embraces what it looks like off the field as well as he does on the field. A very high accountable student and a guy that can be an ambassador for the football program. And when you have those guys, you don't see communication breakdowns. You don't see selfish mistakes on the field. You don't see selfish penalties. You don't see guys like that putting themselves in front of the team in an environment that has a packed stadium or an environment where nobody's seeing them. So, I think that there's a noticeable difference in the gameplay, but there's an impactful difference throughout the course of the calendar year from January until the last bell sounds of their last game, because they're able to, like I said, use their sphere of influence in a positive manner for everybody moving forward.
Joe, you mentioned the depth that has been built, that continues to be built, just with the amount of guys that got some playing time, especially early on in the season, some true freshmen as well. Just how beneficial is that down the road? What impact does that have?
Yeah, I think it's huge. Obviously, these guys don't come to practice every day to watch other guys play. They want to play. You know what I mean? And a lot of guys, in many cases, you might not be a starter, but you've earned the right to play. The guy that leads our team in touchdowns is Penny Boone right now, and he hasn't started a game yet. So if he puts his head in his rear end and doesn't show up to practice and has this terrible attitude through the whole thing, he goes from a 2 to a 3 or a 3 to a 4. Or he has a great attitude and he continues to practice really, really hard, and the game rewards him. Ironically, that's crazy how that happens. That's how it goes. So, you don't just – there's not 11 guys that play in a football game, whether that's an NFL game, a high school game, or a college game. So everybody wants to know who the starters are. Everybody wants to know in the NBA Finals who the top 5 basketball players are that are going to go out there at the tip-off. But rarely throughout the course of the game are only those 5 guys that impact the outcome of the game. And it's so true in football because there's so many different areas and ways to impact the game. So, Eric Hawley, I don't know if Eric caught a pass, but he impacted the football game in a major way on Saturday. He blocked the punt. So, development of young players, finding a role for young players, continuing to keep young players engaged, continuing to find ways to show that young players that their role is critically important as the season progresses is a constant challenge for coaches. We don't beat Eastern Michigan last year. We don't win a conference championship. We don't beat Eastern Michigan last year if Tucker Gleason doesn't have a great game. We don't beat Eastern Michigan last year if the kicker doesn't come in and Luke doesn't come in once our kicker gets hurt on the opening kickoff and have a great game. We don't beat them if R.J. Delancey doesn't come in and play really good on their slot. And we don't beat them if Kendall Major doesn't come in and play really, really good on the offensive line. There's so many different examples of that in key moments that guys have to step up and do that. So developing people and continuing to develop depth throughout the process of what we're doing here is the fabric of which your program has to be built on, cut from. And if it's not, you're in trouble.
To piggyback off practice, you mentioned how well of a Tuesday practice you had last week. Seeing that kind of pay off on Saturday, how does that help the team know what, if you do that leading up to the game, things will help, on Saturdays?
Well, I mean, if you have a good Tuesday practice, doesn't mean you're going to score 70 points every weekend. I wish it did. We'd be pretty damn good. But it does put the rest of the week in perspective because you're not playing catch up. And I think that's critically important because there's so much asked of these young people when it comes to what their schedules are. I think the average fan has no idea what these guys go through. They're here for 4 hours in the morning, and then they still have to go to school and do their work that a normal student would have to do. And I get it. There's a scholarship. They get paid to do this. I understand all that, but a commitment to doing that is really you're sacrificing the other things that you want to do that a normal college student gets to do that you don't get to do. So I think that the commitment they put in, the time, energy that they put in on task. And being able to see that as a reward on the Saturdays should be motivation to continue to respect the process and have great practices, whether it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Out of curiosity, and it's probably more evident in week 1 than week 2, but I know obviously with the rule change and the timing, teams are getting fewer possessions on offense. Just your thoughts on kind of how you've adapted to that change? Yeah,
I mean, we somehow figured out how to make a 4-hour game on the first game, even though we didn't have as many plays and as many possessions. So. I guess it was to shorten the games to take all these plays away from these kids, but it didn't turn out that way. So I guess we got to continue to put our heads together and find our reasons or ways to, whatever that may be, to to help with this thing, to try to shorten games, since it's a big deal across college football.
How Dalton Andrews has gone through injuries, position change. As a coach, how nice was it to see him get in?
Yeah, great reward for him. Coming as a walk-on, playing on the offensive line, you're buried on the depth chart there. You have an injury, you come back, and what's your role going to be, and you got to gain all this weight back, and probably not going to get there and do that. So we find a role for you, and you really embrace the role, and you work really, really hard at it. And when you look at the measurables of what your tight end looks like, he doesn't fit any of those. But work ethic, consistent play, and consistently trying to show and prove to the coaches that you deserve to have some snaps and to be out there on the field, was what he was able to do. And guys like that always get rewarded, and continue to try to fight for those guys. And to be able to get him in the end zone Saturday was a cool thing, and a cool moment for me to be able to see him celebrate that, because I know the long road and the long haul that he had to go through to get to this point in time. So he's a guy that's got a tremendous amount of respect from his teammates, and a guy that's a true Rocket, and a guy that's going to have to play a vital role here for us as we continue down the path here if we're going to win another championship.
What kind of message does that send to teammates to see someone kind of go through all that and just continue given?
Yeah, it's a picture of perseverance. Some guys see adversity as a way to, define them in a positive or a negative way, and that guy's used it in a very positive way. And I think that's a good message for young players, and I think it's a good message for guys that go through and deal with injuries. I said this a couple weeks ago. I think when you're hurt and you miss time and you're out for the season, or you miss an extended period of time, the battle's not the physical part of it that's the key. The battle's the mental part of it, of you staying in there and staying consistent to the responsibilities that you have as a man and as a student, because what you really want to do is play football, and that's been taken from you. So, you don't really know who a guy is until he's been through a really tough storm, and man, oh man, when you miss an entire year of football, that's a tough storm. So he's come out of it with a great attitude and brighter path ahead for him, obviously, and it's great to see him have a moment on Saturday.
And then I forget the exact number. Is it 8? Yeah, 8 active roster guys, 11 total NFL guys, week one. Just how big is that for the program? It's a lot for a G5.
Yeah, speaks to the development of our kids here. Speaks to Coach Boucher and what he's able to accomplish with these guys in the weight room, and time and energy that they've put in. I think the thing I'm most proud of is the guys that got into camps. They all stuck. And I know a couple guys dealt with some injuries, and they're in a tough spot right now. But these guys you get to that point in time, you always want to get them to the opportunity, and you want to feel like as a coach you provided them with enough tools in their toolbox to stay once they get there. To make an NFL roster, you have to be really good. You have to be really lucky. Some break is going to happen that goes your way, and you have to be able to seize your moment when you get it. And I think that a lot of those guys that are in that category, like use Kadar Hallman for an example. I mean, he's on the active roster playing for the Texans, and he's out of football last year. And why? Well, he made an impact, I'm sure, on some of those 49ers coaches when he was in San Francisco with his effort, his work ethic, and what he's able to bring to the table from being a great teammate, because that's what he was here. So I can't imagine that's changed. One of those coaches leaves and goes to the Texans and brings them along with him, and plays really, really good in a couple preseason games, and now here we are. So, and in his case, again, a really good athlete that had to catch a break, and a guy that had to consistently put pressure on the other guys around him by his level of commitment to being who he said he was going to be. So, really proud of our guys that have been able to go on and do well. Many of them have different backgrounds. Many of them, a couple guys were even walk-ons. So, but I think the consistent factors are really good people who have a high level of consistency when it comes to the work ethic, and on game day have ability to take themselves to a place physically that they're ready to rock and roll with the other grown men out there playing this sport.